Hi there, thanks for the introduction. My name is Ryan Gravel, and I'm going to share with you today the vision for the South River Forest. Let me share my screen. Great, I hope you can see that. The South River Forest is truly a very big idea. Just for a little orientation, it flows 2/3 of the region, of the metro region, drains into the Chattahoochee River and out to the Gulf of Mexico. But the southeast and eastern parts of the region drain into the South River, which flows into the Okmulgee, which flows into the Altamaha River and out at the coast near Sea Island and Darien. It's an incredible watershed. Atlanta sits high on the subcontinental divide, and this side of the region flows to the Atlantic Ocean. You can see in the inset map the scale of the space that we're talking about. It's larger than Stone Mountain Park, but inside 285. Oops. I first started looking at the South River when I was working on the Atlanta city design. This is a big idea, a big plan for a vision for the future of the city. How do we design change so that as the city more than doubles its population in the face of regional growth of 2.5 million people over the next 20 years, how do we make sure that we grow into the best version of ourselves? And of course, a big part of Atlanta's identity is in the tree canopy. And one of our greatest needs looking ahead at all that population growth is a preservation of green spaces. And so the South River Forest really elevated itself in multiple ways as a priority for the city's future. The city design was adopted by the Atlanta City Council into the city charter, which makes it pretty fundamental to the city's idea of itself. Simultaneously, the Nature Conservancy had been working in the South River, Okmulgee, Altamaha watershed for a long, long time, mostly outside the metro area, but they started looking at how they might be involved in the city, in urban areas, conservation in urban areas. As you probably know, there's been a lot of attention to the Chattahoochee River and Proctor Creek and things like that, but not much to the South River. And so they decided to look more closely at this area. And you can see how this sort of heat map of development illustrates how there's still quite a bit of tree cover and undeveloped land in this little corner of Southeast Atlanta and unincorporated Southwest DeKalb County. It's not protected though, mostly not protected. And so it is at risk of development. When you find the South River, if you can see why it's been forgotten. It's nearly invisible, the way that the city has grown up around it. This is the historic sort of map of the area. Weelaunee, we believe, might be the native Muskogee name for the South River. Soapstone Ridge is a geological ridge line with rock outcroppings of soapstone that you'll see in a minute. As the city grew around the end of the 1800s, early 20th century, the area was home to the prison and the prison farm, which was for low-risk inmates to work their time. Brick companies, railroads, kind of industrial flavor. As the city grew with suburbanization, it kind of bypassed this area and filled it with correctional facilities, industrial truck storage, landfills, and those kinds of things that were less desirable in people's neighborhoods. In the area, while there are communities here, they were burdened and saddled with these negative things as this dumping ground for generations. The turning point really began in the 90s when the South River Watershed Alliance and community groups elevated the impact of the leaching from some of the landfills and some of the other pollution and environmental degradation in the South River watershed. And through the force of EPA and other partners, the city and county had to start doing something. At that time, several of the existing parks like Constitution Lakes and Trenton Creek Park and Southside Park were all created. And since then, since it's been a little cleaned up, people's begun sort of exploring and emerging in this area. And so it's been interesting it's a good time to start rethinking this incredible landscape. Meanwhile, of course, the growth of the city continues, and obviously one of the impetuses behind the city design was to protect the city's interests from growth. While this may not be the front line of gentrification just yet, it's close. Growth pressures are coming south from East Atlanta and Grant Park, especially. We also looked at a lot of other watersheds in the region, a lot of reinventing and creating new access to other waterways in the region. And of course, nationally and globally, there's been a great number of incredible transformation projects for degraded urban watersheds around the world. And then a park this size, I mean, you're talking 3,500 acres, larger than Stone Mountain Park, but inside 285. It's an incredible landscape that would allow lots of things to happen. So we've been trying to not master plan what this is, but come up with ideas that inspire people to rethink what this landscape could become. So I've been working since 2017 with the Nature Conservancy. When we wrapped up the city design, started working with the Nature Conservancy on fleshing out this vision. We've been imagining what that looks like, articulating the specifics of the landscape strategies, how we would get this vision come to life, and just do a lot of imagining and community work, talking with different communities and trying to form a network of shared interests. This is the landscape, so it goes as far west as Jonesboro Road and Southside Park. You may be familiar with the mountain bike trails at Southside Park and the ball fields, pretty popular. Moreland Avenue goes right through the center of this. So you might be familiar with the Starlight Drive-In, for example, which is here. And then the eastern edge is Boulder Crest. And it's a loose term. Some of these parks connect to other parks, and it's a large landscape, but this is generally the area that we've been talking about. You can see the dark green is publicly owned land. So that is public parks like Southside Park here, Constitution Lakes, and Entrenchment Creek Park. It is also a couple of water reclamation facilities. This one is actually decommissioned. It includes Lake Charlotte, which is a new 220-acre tract of forest that was recently acquired by the city. It's not open yet, but it will be a nature preserve. And then importantly, this one, we'll get back to this, but this is the old Atlanta prison farm. This again, where low risk inmates could go work the land. It was related to the federal penitentiary. It's been owned by the city, but it's outside the city limits, and it hasn't been used as a farm for several decades. So it's all overgrown, and back into a forest. Slightly lighter green is the landfill, so not really at risk of development. And we've been looking at models for how you convert a landfill into a park. The second to lightest green is private land that's predominantly forested, undeveloped. And then the lightest green is developed land, like truck yards and stuff, which, isn't forested, but man, it's right along the river. All those oils and grease from the trucks drain directly into the river. And because they're already flat and deforested, they could be used for ball fields and constructed wetlands and other kinds of things that need to be built. From an ecological value, obviously this is a very high level concept of ecology, but it's, what areas are forested, which areas are deforested, where are the high points and low points, landfills, those kinds of things. You can get a sense for that. Obviously, with both the South River and its tributary, Entrenchment Creek, this landscape is kind of organized around that. And of course, naturally, the low-lying areas are along the river, which are prone to flooding. So this is kind of the vision. You've got South River Gardens in the west, Boulder Crest in the east, and the Value Village Shopping Center, which has been proposed for redevelopment in the north, all along Moreland Avenue. Again, this is a big vision. 2/3 of this is, not really at risk of being developed, but sorry, 1/3 is not at risk, 2/3 is. And so, we're early in the stages of getting something like this off the ground. And that's the idea. Surrounding this vision, of course, are a lot of communities. And part of the city design and the intention behind the South River Forest in this work with the Nature Conservancy is to make sure that we're not just talking about the park, but we're also talking about the impact on the communities, both in terms of environmental, tree canopy, watershed, all of that, but also for impacts on cost of housing, creation of economic opportunity, that everybody, that the people who are here should be part of this vision. And so not only are we including that in the way that we're thinking, but we're also connecting with people in communities and beginning a process of a much larger process down the road of what that should look like and be. So we've been conceptualizing it. We've been sharing this idea. We've been strategizing about the different parts. This is not something that is fully baked. It is early in the process. That's why we're talking with you all and sharing this vision and trying to get to the next level. So we'll continue to do that. It is beautiful though. I wanted to show you some pictures. This is, you don't have to wait to enjoy the South River Forest. You can go there now. This is Entrenchment Creek Park. That's Entrenchment Creek on the right. Here's another view. Beautiful floodplain, wetland, not wetland, floodplains with that you can go on beautiful hikes through. Very underutilized park. You can really escape from other people and get out in nature. It's quite nice. This is Southside Park. I mentioned the mountain bike trails, very well known regionally for its mountain bike trails, but also has, you can hike those trails too. You can go out into the woods. These are the soapstone boulders that are at the crests of some of these hilltops. Constitution Lake, so if you haven't been there, you've got to go. This is not a natural lake. This was a brick company, and the lakes are formed from the pits where they dug up the clay to make bricks. But it attracts a lot of waterfowl, a lot of birders always there, fisher folks fishing out there, and it's just quite beautiful. It also has this folk art trail called the Doll's Head Trail. If you haven't been there, it's worth a little tour. This is one of the lesser known lakes, like Constitution Lakes. Then there's landfills, again, not really at risk of being developed, and a different kind of concept for what a park might be. And of course, we don't know yet how we might use them because, they're all closed, but they're obviously still, doing their thing. So it might be a while before we actually get to use them, but we want to incorporate them as part of the vision. Importantly, between these landfills, there's a mountain stream. It could be in North Georgia somewhere. It's quite beautiful. This is Entrenchment Creek, literally between two of the Donzie landfills. Lake Charlotte, I mentioned, is a 220-acre, high-quality, beautiful forest. It was the largest tract of privately owned forest in the city until it was purchased by the city late last year. It's not open yet, but it will be open, so it can go through its own planning process for access and security, and then it's going to open hopefully very soon. It has these soapstone boulders too, and the native people reportedly carved soapstone bowls out of them, and you can still see some of the remnants of those bowls. This is the bottom of the lake. So the Lake of Lake Charlotte doesn't exist anymore. This is it. It's a beautiful wetland meadow. But we do have some major threats, and I want to just spend a couple minutes on that. One is the prison farm, which is the city's, it's city-owned land, 348 acres of city-owned land, but it's outside the city limits, which means that it and the surrounding communities are not represented in City Hall. They can't vote for city council or for mayor. They're not. The use of this property is not accountable to them in any way. They don't have any say in what happens. It's always been envisioned as a green space for 25 years now. And that's been the expectation. Of course, it was the primary inspiration for the South River Park in the Atlanta city design. But just a couple months ago, the Atlanta Police Foundation announced that they were going to build a public safety training facility here. There had been no community input about that. Nobody even saw that coming, but it was just announced in the newspaper. And so definitely a threat to the vision. You can see how important the prison farm is to the entire landscape. It is the primary centerpiece connecting tract of land. It also is a high quality green space, and we need it for its not just its physical connectivity for people and trails and things, but also for nature, wildlife, habitat, reducing urban heat island effect, all of the things that's its best and highest use. We're convinced. The second is the Crown and Fortune sites, which are privately owned for mostly forested land. I'll show you a couple of pictures of that. And same thing with 3 that on here, the Forest Connector. You can see how it connects Southside Park with Lake Charlotte. It's about 45 acres. It is privately owned, a beautiful forest that we'd like to, it's a priority, and it's threatened by a new subdivision. Fortune is threatened by movie studios. This is the Honor Farm. These are farm ponds. The land is terraced. You can see how it was once farmland, but it's all reforested now. These are old farm ponds. There's 2 of them. This is down in the floodplain where along Intrenchment Creek. And then this is Intrenchment Creek itself. On the other side is literally Intrenchment Creek Park. So you can see how seamless this landscape really is, how it operates today. We just want to protect it to continue to work like that. The Fortune site is on the left. Here on the right is actually part of the Constitution Lakes property. It's not accessible to the public, but it is part of the county property. To the left is a nearly 200-acre privately owned forest, like Lake Charlotte, rolling topography, beautiful forest, hilltops with rock outcroppings, soapstone ridge. That was South River. That is the South River just before it flows under 285. Fortune, Lake Charlotte, all these properties have shagbark hickory, which is a rare species to find in this far south and in this part of metro area, in an urban area. This is the forest connector that connects Southside Park to Lake Charlotte. Again, threatened by subdivision. It also has some farm ponds and other things. It was once a farm, but now reforested for the last 40 years, 50 years probably. So, anyway, thanks for listening. That's my work I've been doing with the Nature Conservancy on the South River Forest. And I know there's a lot of discussion, so I'll turn it back to the moderator. Thank you.